something I do notice now, and it made it a lot easier on us, is all the spark plugs are already out of it. So not only have we had moisture from the bottom side, we've had it from the top side for 30 years. Now when we said no head gaskets, we meant bad head gaskets, not literally no head gaskets. What is happening, budget builders, and welcome back to the channel. We're back at that local scrapyard, junkyard that has these really cool cars where we saved that little rabbit, and behind us, just kidding. Over here we have this really cool 1962 Falcon Ranchero that has been 4x4'd. This thing has been off the road since about 1992, and today we're gonna get it drug out, and we're gonna save it. I think the hood hinges are frozen, yeah. It's a Sunday, I'm kind of in my chill clothes. We do need to get this thing unloaded, and for one of the first times, we're gonna go ahead and wash this thing before we get it off the trailer. We are back to the shop with this absolutely incredibly beautiful piece of automotive engineering. You can see I've thrown it up on some 35 by 12.5 rollers for the time being. This thing is a flippin' monster truck. But we did go ahead and wash it off. It obviously needs a lot more work. That grime has been caked on this thing for so long. One thing I did notice while washing this thing out, in the back of it is this crusty old oil pan. And that, you know what that is. Yeah, I think we found the reason this thing was parked. Definitely did not notice that originally, but we now see it. Well, that makes this more interesting for sure. You can see right here, had a spun rod bearing. It actually looks really good still. A lot of surface rust on it and everything from sitting so long. I'm sure all of those cylinders are stuck. And the surface there isn't terrible. I think it'll clean up when we can put a bearing in it. But that's the reason this thing was probably parked back in 1991, I would imagine. And I did also soak down and free up those hinges. They were completely frozen. And we can get a better look at what's going on under here. All the rust falling out of that hood. As you can see, still running the original little master cylinder there. No power brakes. Some goofy covered up stuff riveted on there. Bunch of great stuff. Spray foam. Some brackets and stuff. Big old radiator, not sure what that came out of. Chrysler. This is a Chevy 350, I believe. Looking at it, it is a 1979 350 4-barrel 4-bolt main. Makes at least 176 horsepower. Man, the 70s were terrible on these poor motors. Once we know the casting number, we can look down here at our suffix code, and this is a TFS suffix code, which is a 1979 3500 or C30, and it makes 155 horsepower, not 175 or 176, 155. This thing's gonna be a hot rod. Next step is to vacuum out all these leaves and crud. This thing is a mess. And let's start seeing if we can pull those spark plugs and get a look at the cylinders. With all that out of there, something I do notice now, and it made it a lot easier on us, is all the spark plugs are already out of it. So not only have we had moisture from the bottom side, we've had it from the top side for 30 years. I think this is more of a durability test now at this point than just a will it run. Can you leave your Chevy sitting wide open top and bottom for 30 years and expect it to run? I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out. You don't have to worry about water sitting in the cylinders. It just drains back out, I guess. Let's grab our borescope really quick. Let's look down on the cylinders and see what we're getting into. Little surface rust on the wall. Down at the piston. Not too bad though. Definitely no water sitting on it. Next one, piston is dead top. Not too rusty. This is looking good so far. Little crusty, but not too bad. Good bit of surface rust on the cylinder wall. And number 4, dead top. Really doesn't look crazy bad. Piston is dead top on that one. That's a little crunchy. I know we're looking, but I think it's just going to come down to trying to soak it down and free it up. Well, this is my thought on it. It's a fairly common, readily available, inexpensive 350 Chevy. I've sold a bunch of these because we get them at auction and stuff as cores and everything, and you normally get 200 bucks, maybe 250 bucks, sometimes $300 for them. You know, that's non-running, that's just a core, so something similar to this, even with and that's not with an intake, so intake's probably worth $50, $60, maybe a little less because it is cast iron factory. And so I think it's going to be one of those things. Let's soak it down. Let's see if we can get it to spin over, and if it will free up. I think we can get a bearing in it. I think we can get it running. I do have plans for this. I kind of want to put something else in it that's really neat. And like I said, I want to see if this 350 will run. It's worth more running. I'll sell it as a rebuildable core even with that. Because sitting like it has, that's not good on these. But let's go ahead, let's soak it down with some Marvel Mixture Oil and start trying to get it to break free. It has been a few days, and I've periodically sprayed down each of the cylinders with PB Blaster just over the course of the time, and let's see if this thing is freed up. Now, because of the design of the front harmonic balancer there and everything, that bolt that you would normally get on a Ford or something else to pull on it hard, Chevy kind of, it's got a, let me think of how to put this. It's a tapered shaft, it's a tapered snout, and so when you tighten your bolt down, it tightens to a certain point, gets that harmonic balancer locked down tight, but the bolt is stepped off. So if you really try to torque on it, you'll just snap the bolt off in the end of the snout there. So our next best bet, let's see if we can get on our flex plate with a pry bar and start torquing on this thing a little bit. Oh man. So I think our best bet is going to be get up and in here. Oh boy. Oh yeah. Oh, there's Mud Dauber. Mud dauber's falling out from somewhere up in the motor. I'm gonna have to really work hard to clean. Big old mud dauber nest. I got our exhaust tied over, and I have been rocking this thing over one tooth at a time. We started here, we're up to there, so we're about a quarter revolution. Let's just keep on at it. Yesterday we were able to pop that motor free, and we spun it over probably for 3 hours straight, one little tooth at a time, rocking it back and forth until we were able to get a nice, smooth, complete revolution of the motor. And now it's time to dress that one connecting rod that is off. So let's go ahead and get up under here and see what we need to get into. What I have here is 800, 2500, and 3000 grit sandpaper that I'm cutting just a little bit wider than our bearing, so the same width of the actual surface the bearing rides on. And I am going to attempt to get up in here. First I want to use the 800 to all the grit and sand and everything off, and then I want to work my way up until we get it nice and smooth and almost a polished finish. As you can see, we are back up in there, and the connecting rod is together with a fresh new bearing. We sanded it down, we were able to get that surface nice and smooth and clean, and then we went ahead and put thankfully a standard bearing fit right in there. It was about $4, but it fit snug. Even though this was really rusty and had some pitting, I did sandblast it, and it actually came out really nice and was able to slide in and hold that bearing really tight. And obviously the bearing doesn't spin on those surfaces, so we're not as worried about the rod and the cap as much as we are the crank, which looks pretty good, and we are together now. We've got our positive hooked to the battery and a ground ran. I guess it's time to see if this thing's gonna spin over for us or not. I'm a little concerned because it is a little tight still, but we'll see. I got a 1000 cranking amp marine battery and a pretty stout old boat starter. That's what I was afraid of. Yeah, baby. This thing's gonna run. Talking about oil now, one thing you'll notice is this distributor is just kind of chilling here. I'm gonna just yank it out. Your oil pump is driven with a little flat at the very bottom, so it's pretty easy to get a hold of, and it's stepped up a little bit, so I imagine what's going on is the distributor's here but not actually dropped in. So I don't know, maybe they tried to run it, didn't have oil pressure. Hopefully that's not what the issue was, but we'll find out. We're turning over now. I think if we can build compression, it'll run. Not too shabby. And what's cool, what I think we should try to do is get a drill on this, and we can turn that pump over. I'll put a little cup or something up to it with oil in it, and let's see if we have good oil pressure, and then we know we can go back on with our pan. And there you go. Cam gear looks pretty good, and the oil pump drive looks pretty accessible, so let's see if we can get something on that. I am gonna go ahead and pull this valve cover so we can get an idea of our upper end, and it'll give us a good view on how sufficient our oil pressure is. Those valves are extremely, extremely tight. Maybe not, but I just don't feel like that should be down that far. Nothing to worry about. We'll figure that out when we get to it. You can see though, that step just seems really excessive, and this nut's actually upside down, which is kind of goofy. Oh, look at this one. That one's very loose. Weird. Oh yeah. With the engine spinning over freely and we verified the oil pump is pumping well, I think it's time, let's go ahead and get an oil pan on this thing so we can get some fresh oil in it. Probably not gonna use this one. There's actually holes. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna use that oil pan. So, even though it's the, the original one to the motor, we were able to pick this one up. Now they're about $40 on Amazon, not a big deal. And it's a nice quality, made in Canada oil pan, so that's gonna work well. So let's go ahead and get this thing cleaned up. Let's get a new gasket on it, some sealant on it, push this pan up in there so we can get some oil in it. Who left this oil filter on before? Who didn't take this oil filter off while the pan was off? Oh, really? Oh yeah. No wonder you weren't getting. Before we go too much farther, you will notice we're missing like all of the intake bolts, and the ones that are in there, about half of them are halfway up. So we're gonna go ahead and before we even try to do much more and take the possibility of blowing what intake gasket might be there and see if we can get all the bolts back in. Well, I wanted to open up this distributor. Gone! And it is not, yeah, it's pretty crusty, but not terrible. But I noticed rotor is loose. There's no Hall effect sensor in this thing, so we're not going to be picking up any signal anytime soon. Okay, so on this style, this is actually your Hall effect sensor. Normally it would read off of what spins there. You know, this whole thing would spin and you would read. Your Hall effect sensor is all built in together, but on this one, it's just an ignition control module that picks up reading off of your Hall effect here, which still probably not an easy thing to get a hold of. Now this is not the same color or anything, and this is actually from part number off of a 77 Camaro. So either try to find a complete replacement or see if we can just find an ignition control module. So what I've got is our ground here hooked to our battery, positive just on here so I can hook the battery positive from our distributor on there. And we spin it. Seems to spin nice and freely. I got a spark plug here. Let's hook it up. See if we got fire. Woo! It's popping strong. Sweet. Sweet. That kind of shocked me. Before we drop our distributor in there, I'm once again gonna turn this thing over, pre-lube that filter, and start getting oil pumped up here, and then we can go ahead and get our distributor in. Now to go ahead and get this distributor dropped in, we need to get this engine up on top dead center on the compression stroke. What we're looking for here is your number 1 cylinder. So on a Chevrolet, the closest bank to you is going to be number 1. So you've got number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we want to see these 2 valves both completely closed. So basically to the point where these are loose as our piston is on its way up, and that's our compression stroke. That's why a lot of times you'll stick a gauge in here and watch as it comes up. With this one, we're just gonna spin it over. Now that since we have the valve cover off, it's real easy to see everything. And as we come up, you have a mark right here on your harmonic balancer that's gonna line up with your mark that we line up to, and then we know we're on top dead center. And then we can set our distributor in and line the rotor up with number 1. So we got a screwdriver in our hole, and you can see our valves are where they need to be. Our timing mark is almost on it, and screwdriver in, there's a piston right there. So we should be just about where we need to be. So Dad decided to pull the valve cover off here. There was no gasket for one. Look, a little bit of silicone. What in the world is going? This thing probably wouldn't have run too good.
Put them upside down. Look, one side's so tight. Oh, there you go.
What a joke. So when we're going in with this, see how our teeth are lined up this direction? You'll kick back beyond where you're supposed to be, and as we slide it in, we rock it down in and slide into the gear. Now with that, we have a flat we have to line up with. So what I do is I'll get in there with my screwdriver, and you try to line it up just right with that, with it turned back, and so it all kind of falls into place. Sometimes it takes a few tries, so we will see. No flipping way.
Will it fall in?
Yeah, you darn straight. Let me show you how.
Too sloppy.
That don't ever happen, does it? Look at that. Got our distributor back in, and we're gonna go ahead and get our spark plugs in here. It's crazy, these things were super pinched in. 35 thousandths is factory with a standard distributor, but with the HEI style, they say 45. So we're gonna run all these to 45 thousandths. So the mud, I told Dad he missed the hole, but no, it was full of a mud dauber, of course, so he's attempting to get that flushed out. I guess I stuck the hose straight through with the with the PB blaster. Got the motor spinning over, we have it mostly back together, and we're gonna try to run this thing now. I guess this, you can say this is going to be a true testament to these old V8s, 350 Chevys. Let's see if this thing wants to run or not. Fuel line is, of course, completely packed full of mud dauber, like everything else on this, so we are just gonna hit it with some ether. I hate to do it, but I wanna do a little bit just to see if we're gonna even pop off at all. And once we know that it will, we'll throw some fuel to it. Got our ignition. What are we doing? Timing is out of whack, but it popped. Sounded like we were 180 out, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
You never know though with these, because I've had them sound like that. Before completely flipping our timing around, we are going to back off some of these valves that are way too tight, because if we are holding open a little bit, which we most definitely are, that could be our backfire issue we just had there. That's trying to run. It's just blowing places it probably doesn't appear it should.
No, Oldsmobile. Remember?
Oh, perfect.
Pump.
Go a little bit more. I just want to just see. Sounds more normal. Did you hear that?
Wait a minute, what?
What?
Where is that coming?
All the head bolts are loose, dang it! Clearly, somebody was all over this engine. We're just gonna torque all the head bolts to about 195 foot-pounds and it'll be good to go. Let me grab this.
Oh my. We might need to get more than 65 pounds because we don't have a
Head
compression head gasket anymore. It's just a flat thing. What is that? Oh. Is that tightening it? Oh my.
I thought it was breaking the ratchet.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I said, what's it doing?
Move.
Backfire. That's the best we've had. Backfire means it's time to run,
Stout
right?
one.
Yeah, there's no head gaskets left in this thing. In case you wonder, that with Lucas poured down on top of the cylinders.
It's kind of strong 35 though. It came up quick.
Well, with a major lack of compression, and we get our pops and fires, when it tries to run, you can see it coming out of the water pump and stuff, and that's just telling me, with all those head bolts loose and everything, we definitely probably don't have any head gaskets in this thing. Intake off, it doesn't look bad. There's mud dauber nest everywhere. Although, no gasket here, none in the rear. How much of it? Very little of these left. Wow, this thing was gonna leak oil if it ran. I'd hate for it to leak oil. Excuse me, sir, but I know why the head gasket's leaking. It would appear we don't have one at all. Now, when we said no head gaskets, we meant bad head gaskets, not literally no head gaskets. I've got to say, this has turned out to be one of the oddest Willet runs ever, and I think it's at a point now that it has to run. We're gonna make it run. I don't know if maybe if we would have started with tearing it apart if it looked like it was completely torn apart, but the thing was is somebody took the time to piece this thing back together to a point where it looked like it was together. I don't know if maybe someone was trying to gyp somebody, whoever they sold it to, trying to make it look like it was runnable. I'm not sure at all. Wow, I don't know. The cylinder walls look pretty decent. They're not perfect, but I think we can get this shot back out here. We can suck all the mud and crud. I think we can suck all the mud and crud and grossness out of this thing, get that valley cleaned up and everything, clean up our sealing surface, make sure everything is nice and flat, get our heads back on there with some fresh gaskets. I did go ahead and buy a Fel Pro set. This is a full gasket set for this motor. It's only $30 with tax from Amazon. 2-day shipping. Here we are. Let's throw this thing together. Still though, I am, wow. I don't know. It's still, this is still a testament, you know, once we get this thing put back together, it's still going to be a testament to whether this thing will run or not. Sitting not only open cylinders, open oil pan in the bottom, but the heads weren't even completely on because they didn't have head gaskets. Wow, this is the craziest one we've ever dug into. I don't know. I am, Wow. Yeah, let's do this. Now you'll notice while I am cleaning up, even though I am using this, I do have a very worn out pad. You don't see any sparks or anything. All I am doing is cleaning up the rust and crud, but we're not actually digging into any metal. When we're going back together, okay, one thing you want to remember, most of these actually go down into your cooling jacket, and so you want to put, they make a special non-hardening sealant you put on these. You get it from the local auto parts store, and we just want to put that on there because otherwise you will have coolant that'll pass up past the bolts, whether it comes in your oil or outside. But we just want to be able to seal that up so we know we're good to go. Now when torquing these, there is technically a special pattern that you're supposed to use. You can look it up, but basically the main thing with this, so you start in the center here, we torque the inside, and then you slowly work your way out either side until you get to the end. You're gonna start with 45 foot-pounds, then 55, and finish it off with 65. It is back together, and I think it is time to attempt to try to fire this thing off again. Kind of losing hope in this one, but I think we can make it happen. Wow, this has been one of the wildest willet runs I think we've done. It kind of has turned into a lot more than I ever expected it to be. Now, as far as the cylinder walls go, I'd say this would resemble more a boat anchor than it would an engine at this point, but got a little bit of gas to squirt in there. It had ATF in it. That's not gonna hurt anything. Oh, come on, sweetheart. Why does it still sound like it's blowing out everywhere? That was it.
You ready?
It wants to, bad. So kind of a last ditch effort here is to check our timing. And I'm thinking the lower one is actually backwards because there is no marks anywhere. We're gonna pull it real quick. Let's verify that it's out of time. If it is, maybe that's our problem. This is giving me Willie's vibes. Holy crap. Sheesh. That's wild. The same person that done this on the Willys. Ooh, that's bad.
That is bad.
Holy crap. It's a whole set off. That's why we keep turning it. We're turning it so far beyond trying to get it to fire. Holy heck. We are lined up top dead center right there. And our mark is what? I guess I'd probably 2 teeth off all the way over there. What in the world? No, timing's right. Nothing on the front, but let's just see if it'll pop off, right, at least. Wake the whole neighborhood up. Oh my goodness. That's awesome. Wow.
That's why
Oil everywhere, wide open headers.
So you can't hear the knock.
Okay, so that, yeah. It wasn't knock. I don't think it was.
I didn't
That's
hear
the
a
starter. No, it wasn't knocking. I think somebody just had this thing all apart and never could get it running again. That's good enough for me. That was the thing, again, like the head gaskets. You know, we didn't go into that because it didn't look like it'd been messed with. That especially, all the bolts were still painted and everything. Sure didn't look like anybody had been into it, but wow, had they been into literally every single part of this engine. Well, that is gonna wrap it up. I've got, what a nightmare. But it was worth it. It's such a good feeling to do all that work and to finally hear it run. We were basically at our wits' end when we took the thing apart and realized it didn't even have gaskets in it. And then to put it back together, spend the time cleaning it up, and it still did not want to hit, to have to tear into the front and figure out that was going on. I don't know why the crank bearing was pulled. There was no bearings left, so I assume it was probably spun, but I don't see how because it didn't run. I'm not sure, but to me, one of our craziest attempts at getting something running to date just because of the mess that it was. 1992 was the last registration. 30 plus years this thing has sat, torn apart, an absolute disaster of a 350, and it actually runs pretty darn good. It sounds good, it sounds healthy, it's got awesome oil pressure. I don't hear any knocking or anything, which you probably can't over that exhaust. I think next step is to kind of dial everything back in, close it all up, build that carburetor, get a fuel pump on this thing, hook our exhaust back up. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to verify our transmission and everything works. Because I do want to go back with a 6-cylinder in this, but a 6-cylinder turbo diesel, and I will show you that in our next episode. Now this thing is goofy, it is hideous, it is funky. First thing we're gonna do is cut those fender flares off of this thing, try to make it look a little more reasonable, and I kind of think down the road, I kind of think the way I want to go with this is I want to put some maybe 35 by 10.5s or 33 by 10.5 steelies, hubcaps. I want to build what would have been an OEM 4x4 Ranchero highboy. I think that'd be really neat with this one. It's got that goofy 80s hillbilly vibe to it right now, and I think we need to dial that out quite a bit. But I really hope you all enjoyed this episode. If you haven't already, you enjoy these rescues, getting this stuff running, even if it fights us like absolutely crazy, be sure to hit that subscribe button, notification bell. Throw a comment down in the section what you think about this, what you think about this goofy truck. If you have been a part of the channel and you are a subscriber, we really do appreciate all the love and support so incredibly much. It's what gives us the ability to rescue these wacky cars. But that'll wrap it up. Peace out, and catch you all on the flip side.